Hello, this is Amin, and this is session 30 of ASP.NET Core tutorial. In this session, we continue our discussion about HTML helper, and this session is continuation of session 28 and 29. If you haven't watched those sessions, please watch those sessions before starting this one. In this session, we use HTML helper in a strongly typed view, and we use the intelligence of a strongly typed view in HTML helper. Let's flip to Visual Studio and continue this session. This is the view that we have created in previous session. We use the label HTML helper, TextBox HTML helper, and also DropDownList HTML helper and TextArea HTML helper as well. If you remember in session 29, when I created this form, I hard-coded all the labels and expression of HTML helper, and I haven't used this model directive that I loaded in this form, but I want to use the intelligence of model directive, and I want to make this label and text box dynamic and use the field of this class inside my view. Let me first copy this view, and then I create this view with a strongly typed view and HTML helper that we will discuss later. I name it a strongly typed view, and I will create one action method inside the CostController with this exact name. And for this purpose, I create another action method with the exact name of the view that I rename. And also I copy this piece of code which I mentioned in the create action method and paste it in the create a strongly typed view action method. Also, I do a change in my view model that I want to pass this category list to the view with my view model. This is the model that I created for CreateCostViewModel. And also here I add one property which contain a list of select list item. I should add this namespace to my class, and I name it categories. And then I return again to my CostController. And here in my CostController, I create object of CreateCostViewModel, and I call it model. And then I create an instance of CreateCostViewModel and fill some value to the properties of this class. It has amount, and I make amount as 100, and also it has comment, and I put a string no comment. And also I have another field which is date time dot UTC now. Just I want to mention, if you use this method, the current time of UTC is returned by this method, or if I use .now, the current time of local will return by this method. And also I want to pass this select list to my view with the model. That's why I use categories and equal to cat list. Cat list, if you remember in previous session, I create one category list, which is list of select list item. And now I don't need this view bag anymore. And I pass this model and this object to my view. And let's go to the create a strongly typed view and make the changes and use the HTML helper with the strongly typed view. This is the copy of the create view, which we haven't used the model inside this one, but here I want to use a model and also a strongly typed view and use another type of this HTML helper. First, I use a label HTML helper, and as you can see, I have three options, and this time I use label 4. For label 4 HTML helper, I use another overloaded version, and instead of expression and label, I just use a lambda expression. And as long as I use lambda expression, you can see I have list of property of the model that I pass to this view, and also I can use HTML attribute. Let me keep both to make it easier for understanding the differences between label and label 4. For TextBox, I use HTML.TextBox4, and this time I use another lambda expression, m.amount, and the HTML attribute that I want to use. Let me do this step for all the text box and labels. As you can see, I have completed all the label and text box, and also for TextArea HTML helper is the same practice, and this time I use TextArea 4, and also I use lambda expression, and again I use the HTML attribute that I need. These are the changes that I have done for labels and for text box and TextArea as well. I delete the labels and text box which we reviewed in previous session. And also I should do it for this one, for label of category. And also this time I use HTML helper, which is DropDownList 4, and again I use lambda expression, and this time I select categories which contains the list of items, and for IEnumerable part of DropDownList for method I use the categories of model that I pass to this view, which contains list of drop-down list, and also I can use option label, and I use again this HTML attribute, and I delete this one. These are the changes that I have done and use label 4, text box 4, drop down list 4, and text area 4 instead of the HTML helper that I reviewed in the previous session. And as you can see, I used IntelliSense for this one. And for text box, I haven't entered anything for value, and you will see when I run the project, the data that I saved in the controller will reflect automatically in my view. Let me save the project and run the project once to see the results. Project up and running, and go to cost, create a strongly typed view. As you can see, the data that I entered in the controller is reflected here. For example, the amount, the date, and also the comment that I mentioned there, or also the items that I stored in the model reflected here. And we can see view page source and the differences between these HTML helper, for example, TextBox 4 and TextBox. As you can see, we have some more attribute there, for example, data .val .required. We describe these attribute later, but as you can see, ID and name are equal to the property of the model. For example, ID equal amount and name also equal amount, and also for the rest, for the date, ID and name automatically by lambda expression, change to the value that we want, or for example, for text area or the category list that I have. And you can see we can have better form while we use these type of HTML helper instead of, for example, TextBox, we use TextBox 4. These are the changes that I applied in my form, which I created in previous session. In this session, I replaced label HTML helper with label 4, and also I replaced TextBox HTML helper with TextBox 4, and the same for TextArea. I use TextArea 4, and also for DropDownList, I use DropDownList 4 in this session, and you saw the differences between these HTML helper and the HTML helper that I used in previous session. Thank you for watching us. Text version of this session is available in description and also in our website. Link of our website and also our social media channels are available in the description and also in our website. Don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Once more, thank you for being with us.